Harris says, I love math. All right, guys, we are working on factoring review notes. So everything that we're doing today is something we've already done. If you already know how to do this, I would prefer that you do the notes on your own and then check the answers. I've also provided the filled in notes. Check and make sure that you got it right, because then that's the best way for you to learn. If you don't know what you're doing though, you know I love math and I would love to teach you. So let's work on this. Now, first thing we do, is there a number that we can pull out of 25 and 1? No, nothing can come out of 1. Do I have 4 terms? Sure don't. I only actually have 2 terms. So I'm going to want to rewrite this first as 3 terms. How many single n's do I have? None. I have 0, which means I'm going to rewrite it as 25 n squared plus 0n minus 1. So remember, we can add and subtract 0 all day long. It's nothing, but it helps us. It's a placeholder for us to see what's happening there. Now we can build a house. So let's build our house. It's 3 terms. We need to make it to 4. Let's build our house. We have 25 times -1 is a -25. So we're going to put our -25 off to the side, and we're going to write the factors of -25. That is a -1 and 25, a 1 and a -25. Remember, when it's multiplying to a negative number, 1 has to be positive and 1 has to be negative. I also have -5 and 5. So now we are looking for the number that multiplies to -25 and adds to 0. I have -1 plus 25 is 24. 1 minus 25 is a -24, and 5 minus 5 is 0. And we're looking for the one that multiplies to 0. So we're going to substitute in, instead of 0n, we're going to put in our -5n plus 5n. So 25n squared minus 5n plus 5n minus 1. Next, we are going to factor by grouping. So we're going to group the first 2 terms and the second 2 terms. What number can go into both 25 and 5? You should recognize that that's a 5. I have 2 n's here and 1 n at each of these. So that means that I have 1 n in each term that I can take out. And then I can start my parentheses. I've got 2 terms in my parentheses. I need 2 terms in my parentheses here. 25 divided by 5 is 5. I had 2 n's. I took 1 out. Minus 5 divided by 5 is 1. I had 1 n. I took it out, so I don't have any more n's there. Plus, because of this plus, what number can be divided out of both 5 and 1? You should recognize that's only a 1. So, and I can't take an n out of both terms, so I just have the 1. Now, I have 5n minus 1, because anything divided by 1 is just itself. Do my terms inside the parentheses match? They sure do. So, to finish it off, I'm going to rewrite the terms inside the parentheses. This 5n minus 1 is being multiplied by 5n. And this 5n minus 1 is being multiplied by a plus 1. And that's the end. All right, let's look at number 2. So the first thing we have to look at is there a number that's common that I can pull out of each of my terms? I have a 2, 3, and 14. Well, 2 and 3 are both prime numbers, which means that I can't pull or factor anything out of the 2 or the 3. So that just means that I have to build a house now. 2 times a -14 is -28. Remember, when I have a negative number, then one's going to be positive and one's going to be negative. And I'm going to rewrite them as 1 positive, 1 negative. So I'm going to have -1 and 28, 1 and a -28, -2 and 14, 2 and a -14, and -4, 7, and 4 and -7. Now, let's do the math. I'm looking for numbers that multiply to negative 28 and add to 3. So I have to now add these numbers together. Negative 1 plus 28 is 27. 1 minus 28 is a negative 27. Negative 2 plus 14 is 12. 2 minus 14 is a negative 12. Negative 4 plus 7 is 3. And 4 minus 7 is a negative 3. Now I'm looking for the numbers that add to a positive 3, which is going to be a negative 4 plus 7. So I'm going to rewrite this as 2r squared plus 7r minus 4r minus 14. So now that I have 4 terms, I can factor by grouping, which means that I'm going to put parentheses around my first 2 terms and my second 2 terms. One number can go into both 2 and 7. If we looked at our factor sheet, we would see that it is a prime number, so only a 1. I have 2 r's here and 1 r, so I can take 1 r out of both of them, and then I can start my parentheses. So 2 divided by 1 is 2. I had 2 r's, I took 1 out, so I have 1 r. Plus 7 divided by 1 is 7. I had 1 r and I took it out, so there's no more left. Now because of this minus, I'm going to subtract. One number can go into both 4 and 14. They're both even numbers. You should be able to see that. And so a 2 can go into both 4 and 14. 2. I don't have an r in both terms, so I can't take the r out. So I have negative 4 divided by a negative 2 is a positive 2. Remember, negative divided by a negative is a positive. 2r, because I couldn't take that r out. Negative 14 divided by a negative 2 is a positive 7. So do my parentheses match? If my parentheses match, then I did it correctly. I have 2r plus 7 in both parentheses. So I'm going to write 2r plus 7. This 2r plus 7 is being multiplied by that 1r. This 2r plus 7 is being multiplied by a negative 2. And that's it. Okay, let's look at number 3. So, number 3. We do not have 4 terms. We only have 3. We need to look and see, can we take a number out? Our multiples of 15 are 3 and 5. And 3 can go into both 54 and 24, which means that I can pull a 3 out and we're going to work with smaller numbers. And that, friends, is exactly what we want to do. Small numbers are always easier for us to work with. So I'm going to put a 3 on the outside of my parentheses. 15 divided by 3 is 5. 54 divided by 3 is 18. And 24 divided by 3 is 8. Now see how much easier that makes it? Let's draw our 3 down here. Because originally we would have to build a house and it would have to be 15 times 24. Then we'd have to find the multiples of 15 times 24 and what adds to 54. Now it's 5 times 8. That's a much smaller number for us to work with. Finding the multiples of negative 40 is much easier. Finding things that add up to negative 18 is easier. So let's do this. The multiples of negative 40. Remember, when it multiplies to a negative number, one is going to be positive, one is going to be negative. So I'm going to have negative 1 and 40, 1 and negative 40, negative 2 and 20, 2 and a negative 20, negative 4 and 10, 4 and a negative 10, and negative 5, 8, 5 and a negative 8. Okay, so we are adding these together. We're looking for the numbers that multiply. I'm sorry, I didn't write my negative 40 up here. Didn't build my house. We're looking for the numbers that multiply to negative 40 and add to negative 18. I've found all of the numbers that multiply to negative 40. Now I have to see what they add to. Negative 1 plus 40 is 39. 1 minus 40 is a negative 39. Negative 2 plus 20 is 18. 2 minus 20 is a negative 18. Negative 4 plus 10 is 6. 4 minus 10 is a negative 6. Negative 5 plus 8 is 3. 5 minus 8 is a negative 3. So we are looking for the numbers that add to a negative 18, which is going to be 2 and negative 20. So now we're going to replace this negative 18 with 2 and negative 20. So I will have 5v squared plus 2v minus 20v minus 8. Now I have 4 terms. Once I have 4 terms, we can factor by grouping. So we're going to put parentheses around the first 2 terms and around the second 2 terms. What number can go into both 5 and 2? They're both prime numbers, so that's just a 1. I have 1v in both of those terms, which means I can take that out, and then I can start my parentheses. 5 divided by 1 is 5. I had 2 v's, I took 1 out, plus 2 divided by 1 is 2. I had 1v and I took it out. Now, because of this subtraction sign, it's going to be minus. And then what number can both go into 20 and 8? If we looked at our factor sheet, we would see that 4 is what they have in common. It's the highest number that they have in common. So, and I don't have a v in both terms, so I can't take that out. So what is negative 20 divided by negative 4? A negative divided by a negative is a positive. What is negative 8 divided by negative 4? Again, a positive 2. So, do my parentheses look the same? They sure do. And because they look the same, then that means that we did it correctly. Now, we're going to go down here where my 3 is and write 5v plus 2. 5v plus 2 is being multiplied by a 1v. 5v plus 2 is also being multiplied by a minus 4. And that's the answer. Okay, our last problem for these notes. Last problem for this week for notes is 2r squared minus r minus 45. So first we look and see, can we factor a number out? 2 and 1, I'm sorry, but there's nothing smaller than 1, so nope, we're not going to. Then we only have 3 terms, we need to make it 4, so we're going to build a house. 2 times negative 45 is a negative 90. So we're going to write all of the factors of 90, of negative 90, or negative 1 and 90, 1 and negative 90, negative 2 and 45, 2 and negative 45, negative 3 and 30, 3 and a negative 30, and a negative 5 and 18, 5 and a negative 18, and also negative 9 and 10, and 9 and a negative 10. Negative 90 is a lot of factors. Thanks for sticking with me. Now we have to add them together. So we're going to add each one of these. Negative 1 plus 90 is 89. 1 minus 90 is a negative 89. This is a 43, negative 43. I'm sorry I'm going through this fast, but there's a lot of factors. 27, negative 27, 13, negative 13, and 1 and a negative 1. Now, we are looking for the factors that multiply to negative 90, which we wrote, and then add to a negative 1, which we added them together. And 9 and a negative 10 add to a negative 1. So now we're going to replace those with 2r squared minus 10r plus 9r minus 45. Now that we have 4 terms, that means that we can factor by grouping. So we are going to put parentheses around the first 2 terms and around the second 2 terms. I'm also going to put my variables so I can see what I can take out. One number can go into both 2 and 10. Both are even numbers, so we can pull a 2 out. I have 1r in each term that I can take out. 2 divided by 2 is 1. I had 2 r's, I took 1 out. So I'm going to have 1 left. Minus 10 divided by 2 is 5. I had 1 r, I took it out, so that's the end of my parentheses. Plus, because of this plus, what number goes into 9 and 45? If you were looking at your factor sheet, you'd see it's a 9. 9 divided by 9 is a 1. I had 1 r and I did not take it out. Minus 45 divided by 9 is 5. So, do my parentheses look the same? They sure do, which means that I did it correctly. So I have 1r minus 5. 1r minus 5 is being multiplied by 2r. 1r minus 5 here is being multiplied by a plus 9. And that's our answer. So you have more homework to do, more factoring review, because we will be using factoring for the rest of your school career, for sure when you are in Algebra 2 with me in 11th grade. So let's make sure we know what we're doing.